I think it's me. I had a session this morning with a mental wellness app, and it didn't go well because the app wasn't working and the Wi-Fi went down and like gremlins. So I'm a bit frazzled. I've had some gremlins this morning, strangely enough. Anyway, welcome, Andrea. Nice to see you here. Are you well?
How's it, Mark?
How's it? How's it?
I
um,
am okay. I'm just also having a bit of a challenging morning, so apologies for being late.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. No worries. I'm glad you're here. Challenging mornings, karma ripening. What is the best way to heal challenging mornings? Is to try not be too challenged by them. To try and just say, oh, well, it's just karma ripening and I'm rolling with the punches. You know, what is it? If life hands you lemons, make tequila? No, make lemonade. Right. So definitely not. Buddhism would not encourage tequila. Um, Strangely enough, in the tantric schools they do, but that's another story. There's such a big difference between sutra and tantra, actually. So, wanted to reflect on what we are going to be doing for the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to be advertising a journey. Gary, have you ever done the source of all my good before as a meditation? No? Ooh, ooh, ooh.
I somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I recall a teaching on it by Geshe Michael,
Yes.
but all I have left is the label.
Okay.
I do not remember.
Awesome. Okay. Fabulous. Fabulous. We are going to be going on a journey, guys, on a freaking wonderful journey. It's Geshe Michael, I guess I've always admired him. I've met him. My teacher, who's a student of his, David, who became a monk recently, he actually flew us to New York, to Arizona to meet Geshe Michael. They paid for our tickets, they paid for our accommodation, they paid for everything. Can you imagine that? And we spent a day with Geshe Michael at his university that he has in Sedona. Sedona is awesome. It wasn't Diamond Mountain. It was like about a 2-hour drive from Diamond Mountain and in a place called Sedona. Sedona is a very mystical place. It's like the Glastonbury of the USA. All the hippies are in Sedona, all the light workers, all the therapists, like alternative therapy. It's really a cool place. And you know what? You are surrounded by these cowboy mountains. You know, when I say cowboy mountains, like those cowboy movies, we just see this like massive rock outcrops. And I mean, the hiking there is sublime. Like we were only there for one day, and I'd love to go back and immerse myself in the place. Beautiful coffee shops and hippie shops, and like shops with tie-dyed clothing. You know the place. I mean, it's just so cool, and I'm sure they've got some awesome parties going on as well. But it was just so nice to be there, and that's where Geshe Michael lives. Anyway, Geshe Michael, I'm going to do an introduction to him next week because I think it deserves that, and a bit of background. But he devised something called the source of all my good, and I'm trying to think of it's a meditation. It's a visual meditation journey, and it might take us 8 or 9 weeks to complete in its entirety. It might be shorter, it might be longer, and then after that I'll take a Dharma holiday because it's going to take a lot of work for me to put in. So that's what we're going to start with next week. And what inspired me is every week we have Buddhism class with our teacher, David. His name is now Lamas Sumati, and he really polished it up nicely, the meditation. So I'm going to send an invite on social media. We might get more people joining who are curious as to the path. You might hear things that you already know, but what you won't know is how the practice unfolds, the beauty of the meditation. And it's a journey of the lamb rim. Okay, what is the lamb rim? It is the gradual steps to enlightenment. So it's the entire process put together in one meditation. And if you ask me, I think it's one of the most profound things that Geshe Michael ever did, because we can study the theory, but if we go on a journey and that becomes a tool, part of our meditation toolbox, then we can go back to and rehash the lamb rim and go over the lamb rim in a 40-minute meditation, or we can break it up into parts, and the lamb rim stays a very prominent part of your day, because people forget it. People forget the steps to enlightenment, and everybody wants to be initiated into tantra and sexy stuff, and nobody wants to make sure that the foundation is solid. And actually, there's so much tantra within the source of all my good as well. There will be a poem to memorize. Gosh, Andrea, I thought that was a snake for a minute, but it was your cat's tail. I was about to say, watch out, Andrea, there's a snake climbing down from the cupboard, but it was a cat's tail. Hello, kitty. Oh, gorgeous. You've got your little hearty bell on. Is that to stop it from jumping on birds, or is it just identification tag?
It's just identification. They're indoor cats. They don't go outdoors.
Yeah. I used to have a cat at the Buddhist temple that I used to live at. I think, Kerry, you might remember, but his name was Brinjal, because he looked like a brinjal. He was very fat. His first name was Scarface, because he was a wild feral tomcat, and his face was all cut up from fights. And then as soon as he settled down and became tame, his name changed to Ginger, and then to Brinjal. And the one silly person said, cats should not be allowed at a Buddhist temple because they kill things, they kill birds. And I was like, you know what, the only time Brinjal's going to kill anything is if the bird flies into him. He got really fat. So I guess we spoiled him too much. Yeah, so what was I? See, I digress now. I saw a cat and I just went mad. That's what happens. When I see cats, I can't control myself. Damn it. All right. The source of all my good. I think it's about a 14-stanza poem that we're going to memorize. Okay? You're going to memorize. You know how good memorization is for your brain? It's like so powerful for your prefrontal cortex to memorize stuff. We're going to memorize it. We might have some new visitors, friends that come along to be curious. What is Buddhism? What is the source of all my good? And I'm not going to say anything more about it now. I'm going to save all of that for next week. What I want to talk about today is reincarnation. So Geshe Michael, I believe, and I know that he doesn't say it openly, but I do believe that he is an incarnation of Lama Tsongkhapa. Now, Lama Tsongkhapa lived, his dates are 1357 to 1419, and he is considered to be the Shakespeare of Tibet. But more than that, he was a doctor, a physician, he was a therapist, he was a musician, and an author. So, I mean, he was literally a genius. And he was a visionary. So what happened to Lama Tsongkhapa is he was a monk, and he went into a retreat in a cave. I suppose I'm going to repeat this next week as well. But anyway, he had like this download for a month of Buddhism, and this angel visited him called Maitreya, and Maitreya gave him the complete Buddhist path, step by step, in order. Now, at that particular time in the 1300s in Tibet, Buddhism actually started to fragment. Like, people were confused about what the Buddha was taught, right? So when Tsongkhapa had this download, this vision, he organized it perfectly. In fact, the scholars that when Tsongkhapa came out and he had written these volumes, they said, look, it's impossible that you could have written this. It's impossible that you could have done so much work in such a short space of time, because it was massive volumes of work. And then they said it's impossible for a human to have done this. You know, he didn't go in with Google. He didn't go in with Encyclopedia Britannica. You know what I mean? Like, it was just straight from his mind, right? The entire path of Buddhism. They said it's impossible for you to have known everything. How did you do this? And he said it was Maitreya. Maitreya was talking to me, telling me what to write. You know, an angel, a deity. So it came directly from an enlightened being, the Lam Rim. So that's something. That's something. You know. Anyway, then it was pulled apart by the pundits, the wise people, the high teachers and gurus. The scholars looked at it and went, this shit is airtight. Like, this is perfectly composed and put together. No one criticized it. No one said, but this is bullshit, that's wrong, this is wrong, there's spelling check there, whatever. Everyone said this is insanely perfect. So Tsongkhapa became hugely popular overnight. Hugely popular. But he was a nomad. And he would wander from place to place. He didn't want to stay in monasteries. He didn't want to stay in the sort of discipline of being a monk. And there's a beautiful story that he was walking with his followers. He sat down in the middle of nowhere in the desert. Nowhere, nothing. There was nothing there. He sat down and he said, this is where I'm going to build my monastery. And they had nothing. They ran out of food. His followers were like, but Lama, we don't even have sampa. We don't even have anything to eat. We're going to starve to death in the wilderness. He said, no, I'm going to build my monastery here. And within the next 2-3 hours, a band of merchants came past on their donkeys and yaks and saw these monks sitting, you know, these yogis sitting in the wilderness. They said, what are you doing? He said, we started building our monastery. They laughed. They said, you guys are crazy. Here, why don't you have some sampa? We've got some extra bags. Oh, and by the way, we'll bring you some more food. We pass this way every day. They thought they were mad. They thought they were interesting. So they fed them. And they started to build Sarah May University, Sarah J and Sarah May, the monasteries. It's massive. And that's how they started Sarah May and Sarah J. Incredible, right? I mean, they just had determination. They had bugger all. They had no cash. They had no food. They just said, right, we're going to do it here. And they did it. Fascinating. Fascinating. Imagine starting a business like that. Anyway, if you have the karma for it, anything's possible, right? So I believe Geshe Michael is an emanation or a direct reincarnation of Lama Tsongkhapa. So I do believe that this source of all my good was created by a Buddha, this meditation that I'm going to be giving you next week. I really, really believe that. I really, really, really do have every faith that's true. I also have faith in the Tibetan system of identifying reincarnate teachers. Has anybody here met a teacher that has been reincarnated? Officially, they are recognized for their reincarnation.
The Karmapa.
You met the Karmapa?
Yeah, when I was in India, he put a tanka around my neck.
Really? Wow. Sure, Kegs. I'm sure you told me, but I think I've forgotten. That's a great
Not a
blessing.
tanka. What's that thing called? It's
Yeah,
not
the
a
white
tanka.
scarf. It's
This-
called kata.
Kata, that's it.
Kata, yeah. It's called the kata. That's beautiful. Wow. Okay, that's a lovely blessing. So you've created a deep connection with the Karmapa. I've also met the Karmapa. It's a strange story. I went to his monastery and I had a private audience with him. And I had in those days, we didn't have digital cameras. It was 1999. And I said to him, do you mind? I gave him a copy of Nelson Mandela's book. What's it called? The Long Road to Freedom, The Long Walk to Freedom. Nice, big, thick book. So he was pretty pleased to get that, because I also think that Madiba was like a bodhisattva or a Buddha. You know, I really do. I do. And so anyway, we had this nice little meeting, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, Sam. And then I said, I had a film camera, and it was a real pig of a camera. Yeah. Most of the pictures we took were blurry or out of focus. It was so hard. And, you know, then you had to take the film in to get developed. I remember those days. So anyway, I said to the Karmapa, can I take some pictures of you? He said, yeah, sure. Took about 7 or 8 photos. I remember the next day getting them developed. All the pictures on the spool came out, except for the pictures of the Karmapa, which was just white light. Like, it was so weird. Like, normally if a spool gets exposed, the entire thing got ruined, right? But the pictures I took of him, I was disappointed, because I was like, how can this happen? But it was like taking pictures of the sun, you know. It was weird. It was, so I kind of thought maybe that's what he was. Maybe that's just light, white light, you know. It was interesting. Anyway, yeah, Kerry Karmapa. So the Karmapa is now in his 17th incarnation as a bodhisattva. So we are probably in our 10th billionth incarnation or whatever. Like, there's no beginning to your, according to Buddhism, there's no beginning. There was no Big Bang. You know, there was a Big Bang before the Big Bang. There was, and I think modern science is starting to prove that there were many Big Bangs. There wasn't just one Big Bang that started everything. And if you think about it, there's nothing, right? There's just empty space. Then bang! Like, how does something go bang in empty space where there's nothing? Like, how does something start? Unless something else causes that start, right? And then if there's a God, who made God? Or where did God come from? Or, like, was God born? Did God have like a God mommy and a God daddy, you know? Like, where did it start, right? So we can't, I mean, the chicken and the egg, like, where does it start? And Buddhism said it never started. There was never a beginning. It always was, it always is. And it will never end. You know, your consciousness, your awareness, your mind, your ability to feel will never end. There will never be an end. And sometimes I think, oh God, you know, when I die, it would be so nice if there was nothing. Like, there's just peace. There's just the end of it all. You know, no more worry, no more anxiety, no more fear, sadness, loss. I'd love that. I'd love just to end it, you know, like just die and it's over. And I think a lot of people that commit suicide have that idea. They really do. They're like, I can't deal with this life. I really hate this life. So you know what, I'm going to end it. And in their mind, they probably think that's how it's going to end. But according to Buddhism, it's not so. That's why suicide is not a good option. Some people have no choice, like my father. He died of suicide. He had no choice. He was in a place of immense suffering. Could not, you know, anything was better than the torture in his mind, right? So I can't judge him. I can't say it was a negative deed. I can't say that that was negative karma. Maybe it wasn't. His motivation for ending his life could have been a positive motivation. It could have been a motivation of kindness to say, guys, I know that I'm putting you through hell, and I just want to release you from that. And that could have been his motivation as a kind person. And I do believe that. So according to Buddhism, life continues. Life will carry on. And the Karmapa, why is it 17? I mean, if we've had billions and billions of incarnations, why is it that the Karmapa is at his 17th? Would anybody like to try and answer that?
Didn't he reach a particular point of awareness where he had the ability to make decisions beyond what the average person who passes away has? And I'm assuming that certain aspects of the mind stream of the Karmapas remains intact, as it were, and sort of builds on itself each life, while other things are different. So I don't know, but I assume that it's something like that.
Yeah, totally. 100% right. So at some point in your life, in your mind stream existence, we will have a very deep spiritual experience. It's called the direct perception of emptiness. Have you guys heard of that? I know Kerry has. Okay. And at that point, your mind sees reality as it is, and not as it is according to your karma. So your karma is projecting your reality. In the same way that a movie reel, let's think of those old film movie reels, that projection on the screen is coming from thousands and thousands of frames that make up that projection on the screen. In fact, it's 65 frames a second that make up the illusion that that is a real thing on the screen. Now, the Buddha said that in 2,500 years ago. In a teaching that the Buddha gave, the Buddha said 65 frames, 65 imprints, he said, in a finger snap. 65 in a finger snap. That's what the Buddha said. Now, it's weird to think that a film, a movie, is 65 in a second. That gives that continuity. So the Buddha said your reality is being made up of 65 karmic ripenings in a finger snap, which is pretty much a second. I'll never forget, there was this funny lady that said, she was an Afrikaans lady, she said, what happens if you don't snap your fingers? Oh, that was a funny memory. I didn't know how to answer that one. What happens if you don't snap your fingers? What if, yeah. So maybe she was a Dakini in disguise, asking very difficult questions. So yeah, okay, 65, whether you snap your fingers or not, it's just, it's not the fingers. But maybe it is the fingers. Gosh, maybe, anyway. Got to keep an open mind. So the Buddha said it. He said, your reality is a projection that you are forced to believe is real because these frames are going off, these karmas are going off at 65 a second. I think a snap. People don't want to hear that. people are like, what? That, what are you talking about? Like, this is real. This table's real. My laptop's real. This stuff is real. But the Buddha was saying, no, it's all just karma. It's all just karma. It looks real, but it's just karma. It's your karma to see it that way. And if you want to debate me, we'll always go back to the pen. You know, there's the pen, looks like a pen to you, but to your dog, it's a chew toy. And your dog has the karma to see it as a chew toy, and you have the karma to see it as a pen. And that's it in essence, the emptiness of it. And that's why it's not real. It's not really what it is. But it is for you. So your entire world is that way. Your partner, your life, the way you look, your mind, the state of the roads, the state of the country, load shedding, good weather, you know, all of these things, whether you're poor, whether you're wealthy, all of these things are a result of these frames, of these karmas. At some point, the practitioner, and that's why meditation is such a vital key in awakening, because at some point in your meditation, you start to see behind the karma. You start to look, you have this experience where you see reality behind the karma. And then there's no you anymore. You can't say, I am having this experience. It is because a you is made up of karma, right? So you can't say this is me having an experience, because then you'll be saying, well, I'm still plugged into my karma. It's like coming out of the matrix. I don't know what that experience looks like, but Geshe Michael has had it. I do believe it, and he's explained it. He's explained in detail what that experience looks like. And it's a 20-minute experience. It's a mystical experience. And this experience is an experience that many yogis in many different religions have experienced, even in Christianity, even in Catholicism, even in Hinduism. It's not unique to Buddhism. Okay? It's not. The direct perception of emptiness, union with God, or they call it many different names, samadhi. What other names? I mean, I'm sure it's found in the Muslim traditions where mystics and yogis have these, you know, unions with God. They have this divine union with God. Buddhism would never say it's a union with God. They would say it's just a direct perception of emptiness. And it's not a perception with your eyes. It's because there's no eyes, there's no nose, there's no ears, there's no mouth, there's no, you know, anything. When you're in that state, there's nothing, but there's everything. Like you everything and nothing at the same time. So you have that experience, then you come out of that experience, and then you are now what is called a bodhisattva. Okay, and you then have a certain amount of lives until you attain full enlightenment or full Buddhahood. Okay, and it's usually, according to scripture, 7 lives. Why 7 lives? Because you work out the remainder of your karma in those lives until you attain full Buddhahood. So why did the Karmapa have 17 lives? And why does the Dalai Lama have, what's his incarnation? 14. Why is he now in his 14th incarnation? Let's have a look. I've got some slides. Let's have a look. There's the Dalai Lama. Isn't that a beautiful photo? Hey? So weird. My father looks so similar to him. It's like every time I look at the Dalai Lama, I see my dad. It's like the weirdest thing. I think maybe that's this affinity I have. Just such a beautiful bodhisattva being. There's the Karmapa. This one on the left is the 16th Karmapa. The one on the right is the 17th Karmapa. Kerry, is that the Karmapa you? Yeah, that's the one. Okay. Yeah. So at some point, thanks, Catherine. Yeah, beautiful. And not just men, women, tulkus as well, right? Let's not be discriminatory. There are many, many women reincarnations. of the enlightened mind, and they are bodhisattvas too, right? It's just, the men have always been given in history the platform, but that's changing. Especially, it's changing faster in Buddhism than any other philosophy or religion, which I'm proud to say, actually, especially in Geshe Michael's lineage, in the school of that particular lineage. More women teachers, more women yogis than anybody else. Once you have that experience, you then can choose your rebirth. You are not forced into another rebirth. You can then actually choose where you want to be reborn, who you're going to be born to, and close to your teachers. You have a mission, you have a purpose. If you have kids, and I don't know if any of you have actually, there's a wonderful program on TV called Avatar, about this little kid, and he's got all these powers, and it's pretty much like the story of the Dalai Lama, except it's action. They can do strange things with water and air, and they can control the elements and so on. So these beings then consciously choose to reincarnate into a form, and at some point they might decide not to become Buddhas. Yeah, can you imagine that? They say, I want to forego my full-blown Buddhahood until all beings are liberated. And that's what a bodhisattva would do. A bodhisattva is translated as a spiritual warrior. So they will come into earth, they will be persecuted, ridiculed like Jesus Christ. They will have to go through trials and tribulations, but their mission is to make sure that everybody hears the teachings, gets liberated, and never has to suffer again. So they are remarkable beings. They are beings that gave up being Buddhas. They are beings that have given up. But have they given it up is the question. People say nobody knows what the mind of the Karmapa is. Nobody knows what the mind of the Dalai Lama is. In their mind, they might be living in paradise. But to us, they might look like a pen. They might look like, this could be a magic wand, right? But it's a pen. But it could be a magic wand, right? To a God being. They might say, Mark, give me that thing. It's a gazongla wangler, don't you know? And I'll be like, wow. Can you imagine if a dog truly understood what this was used for? Like, they can't even comprehend. Like, a dog cannot even comprehend that you can communicate with people across the world with a pen by sending them a letter, right? A dog can't comprehend that. We cannot comprehend certain things as well. There are other higher beings, beings that we cannot comprehend. Okay, you got to keep an open mind like that, right? That this could be a magic wand, that this could be, I don't know, like a laser gun or something. We just don't know how to use it in that way. We might think it's made to be a pen, but maybe it wasn't made to be a pen. Maybe it was made in a God factory, and it appears to us as a pen. In the same way that a dog would argue that this is definitely a chew toy and nothing else. Got to keep an open mind. So our job is to then, strive to become bodhisattvas, and really, that's the Mahayana path. We discussed the different levels of school: Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Vajrayana being the esoteric path, the fastest path to enlightenment. That's our job. Our job is to get our ass out of here, out of samsara, out of bad days. Your job is to have your cake and eat it, right? Your job is to enjoy the bliss of enlightenment and work for the sake of all beings, because those two are inseparable. It's not hard work. It's not like, at the end of the day, shit, I've had to look after 1,000 people today. It's completely exhausting. The Dalai Lama is in his 90s. He gets up at 3 a.m. and goes to bed at 10, 11 at night. He's got incredible amounts of energy. My sister-in-law, Janita Snyman from Clarkstorp, went to India and sat with the Dalai Lama. You know why? Because he makes time for Janita from Clarksdorp. And he doesn't have the time, but he has the time. He makes the time. Time happens for him differently, you see? He probably meets way more people than we think he does. Like a wizard. So next week, we'll dive into the source of all my good. It has been put together by a bodhisattva, possibly a Buddha. It was originally translated to Lama Tsongkhapa in the 1300s. So yeah, it's not a laughing matter. It's actually pretty cool, and it's really important. So that's what we're going to get into next week. All right, let's end with a meditation, and then I have to take my son to my sister's for fun times. Okay. Let's take in that nice deep breath in through the nose. And then gently breathe it out the mouth with control. And now, imagining that Buddha, that beautiful divine being at your heart center, sitting on the lotus flower, radiating light throughout your being. And this light then shines out into the world like a ripple. And there's like this ripple of beautiful light that comes out of your heart in all directions. It goes outwards. And as it goes outwards, it promotes abundance, peace, love, and compassion, wisdom to all beings. They get whatever they want, whether they're doggies, cats, cockroaches, snakes, spiders, cows, fish, birds, your mother-in-law, whoever, right? Just the light goes out and makes them happy and gives them what they need today. As this light touches them, they are transformed and their suffering is removed. And as you imagine this, I'm going to sing a dedication, a closing dedication. Gewa di kewo kun, suna mieshe zozo shin, suna mieshe le junwe, damba kunia topa shog. May the precious and sublime awakened mind arise in those where it has not arisen. Where it has arisen, may it never wane, but continue to expand forevermore. Go. Namaste to all of you. And thank you for joining the class today. Doesn't matter if you're late. I don't care. That's cool, as long as you're here. And for those of you watching on YouTube, pop in. Come and visit us from time to time. Thank you, Andrea. I hope your day goes better. Catherine, thanks for joining. Kerry, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
We'll start next week with the source of all my good. Okay. Have a good weekend. Bye now.